Hey guys, it's Danny. Today it is time to make a Q&A session. I think we skipped last week. There were so many subjects that I wanted to talk about. Sorry about that. So we're gonna get to as many questions as I can in this video. We have a whole bunch of very interesting questions. So with that said, let's see what questions you guys left in the comment section of my videos. Sana has a question regarding 3 Vanda seedlings. They're saying that they require watering every day. Could they be placed in sphagnum moss in their wooden slated pot? Yes, absolutely they can. As they're young, they do actually require a little bit more water than mature Vandas, which can store more water. You can even put them in normal pots if you want. You can use bark, you can use very, very loose sphagnum moss. If you say you have baskets, moss is actually really good because the basket is very, very airy. So yes, absolutely, you can use sphagnum moss. More so if your environment is very warm or very dry. You just have to keep an eye out that the moss doesn't stay very, very soggy all of the time. That can sometimes cause some problems. You can let it dry out in between waterings, but I do believe it will make your life a little bit easier and you won't necessarily have to water every single day. Kit Kat is saying that they've never had issues with snails, but this year they found 2. All the orchids were repotted but not sprayed with hydrogen peroxide. Is it possible to flood the pots, pretty much soak the pots, or will the hydrogen peroxide damage the orchid? No, it's actually very possible to soak the entire pot in hydrogen peroxide. Some people actually do that. Some people run hydrogen peroxide just to aerate the root system. But in the case of snails, I would suggest that you actually soak the entire pot in a decorative container. Maybe leave it there for 30 seconds even or so and then pull it out. I would even lift the pot and put it back down. I tried this with some cymbidiums back in the day. The roots were perfectly fine. The thing is, the hydrogen peroxide needs to reach all of the crevices and all of the air pockets. Otherwise, it might actually miss some eggs. That's why I prefer to spray it when I repot. But definitely, if you didn't do so, you can soak the pot. Just make sure that the concentration is not larger than 3%. Now here's a question that I wanted to address in my video, but I forgot. Jay is asking if I seal off the rhizome when I separate orchids or when I divide them, what is best to use? I actually don't seal the rhizome anymore. Rhizomes are pretty woody, and in my experience, nothing bad actually happened if I didn't seal the wound. When you cut a pseudobulb, which is a succulent, fleshy structure, it's a different story. There's a lot of water stored in there. But in the rhizome, not so much. The less water you have, the less prone it is to get infected. I'm not saying it's not possible. Of course it is. But being that I spray hydrogen peroxide anyway, typically on the root system, I do disinfect the area. Also, most of the times I'm using fresh medium and good quality medium. It doesn't actually have pathogens. And maybe once in a blue moon, I guess it's possible to get an infection. Until now, I cannot attribute anything in my collection to cutting of a rhizome. I did other stuff to spread pathogens, but not sealing the rhizome was not in that list. This, however, doesn't mean that you should not seal the rhizome. If you feel comfortable sealing it off, you can obviously put a little bit of cinnamon powder there, or the thing that I actually use on pseudobulbs or canes now, a pinch or a blob of glue from a glue gun, not super glue. That's a little bit too watery. It works brilliant actually, and it seals off any cut wound really fast. Sandra has a question about their Phalaenopsis. They're trying to hydrate it, but the orchid keeps having limpy leaves, even though it is in water culture, and they don't understand how the orchid gets dehydrated sitting in water. I will explain how actually. How do I de-wrinkle the leathery leaves that are just hanging over the sides of the container? Well, first of all, just because an orchid sits with its roots submerged completely in water doesn't mean it will hydrate. Because roots in general, for every plant, not only orchids, but more so orchids, which are epiphytic, need oxygen as well. The roots breathe as well. In lack of oxygen, the roots will struggle with even the basic functions, such as absorbing water, paradoxically enough, absorbing nutrients, and of course, breathing, respirating. So my advice is for you to try and introduce oxygen somehow to that orchid. I'm not gonna tell you what setup to use, that will have to be your decision. My preferred way to fix dehydrated orchids is to pop them into medium, which is airy but moist all the time. Both of these things at the same time. In my experience, This is the best technique for rootless orchids or for orchids that have a few roots which are vital for the hydration of the orchid. Now, speaking about waterlogging, it can occur in soils and media as well, not only in water. You don't necessarily need to sit roots in water to drown them or suffocate them. You can do so even in medium, even in soil, if you make sure that all air pockets are filled with water. Sphagnum moss is a great example. It's easy to waterlog roots in sphagnum moss if we compress it too much. By compressing the sphagnum moss, we lower the air pocket number and also their size, and it's easier for water to actually fill up all the available air pockets. The tinier the pockets are, the easier it is for water to just completely clog them. And this is how we obtain sick and actually dead roots in a very compacted medium. Bark can act the same. If it's very old, it becomes crumbly, it loses its structure, and becomes very compacted, very suffocating. But if we use these materials correctly and we make sure that we change them in time, waterlogging or actually root rot, root suffocation cannot happen. And you guys might know, whenever I work with full sphagnum moss, I make sure that everything is super fluffy. And the result is what you see here. There's nothing wrong with sphagnum moss. However, all media we use with orchids need to be used properly. As for full water setups such as hydroponics, people actually use air stones or liquid oxygen introduced in the basin, and this actually prevents suffocation. But of course with orchids it might be cumbersome. You guys know how I feel about that culture, but in the end, oxygen is a really important nutrient for orchids and it shouldn't be lacking. Lisa says they have a Dendrobium nobile with 2 keikis. How do we pot Dendrobium canes so that the new growth will have more room to grow? Well, actually, when it comes to Dendrobiums, things are pretty easy. Now, this is not a nobile, but it's very similar to a nobile. Mine are very big and they're outside. With nobiles and other Dendrobiums, the entirety of the cane tends to be rather slender than bulbous. So when they grow, no matter where they grow, they will actually have a lot more space than, let's say, an Oncidium would. Of course, you can look at the available eyes and try to put them towards the center of the pot, but even if you don't succeed with that, there's no problem because nobiles rarely outgrow their pots. It takes a lot of time for them to do that, more than an Oncidium, which has very bulbous pseudobulbs. So don't worry too much about it. Your orchid will probably have a lot of space in its pot, no matter how you arrange it. Practice some common sense though. Don't put the cane right next to the edge of the pot. Barb is saying that they are a little bit confused about my potting medium choices. And I do seem to use a lot of different mixes. Can I do a video on which medium is best for specific orchids? Actually, no, because there is no such thing. Any medium can work for any orchid with the correct person and correct environment. So I'll do something even better than that. I will make a video in which I will take all of these very popular orchid media that you can find on the market and talk about their properties and how they are used in accordance to environment. Some indeed might work better for some people and not so great for others. I believe that is a much more correct way of approaching the medium problem. I have a ton of questions from people asking what they should repot this orchid in. But the best thing to do is to indeed talk about their characteristics. And afterwards, the final decision should be for each and every one of you. I'm just gonna tell you how to assess your environment. I think that's a better way of looking at things. Jamie is asking, how do I water my Tillumnia in the net pot? Well, it's as easy as getting some fertilized water, if I want to fertilize, in a separate container, getting the net pot, placing it inside, and letting it be for a few minutes. Moss will actually absorb the water, and you can see the pot is starting to straighten up as the moss absorbs water. So at some point everything will be saturated. I don't want to let it be super saturated. It's not super hot right now, so I don't let the moss become super soaking wet until the top. I might leave it here for a few minutes and then remove it. Put it here for a little bit. In this time, the moss will continue to soak up whatever excess water it has here, and it will reach a sort of evenness. And after this, I just put it back, and that's how I water everything that resides in a net pot. Pat is saying that one of the Mulier phalaenopsis, I don't know what that is. I thought Mulier oncidiums were the only Mulier on the market, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. So one of the mini phalaenopsis that is mounted is off balance on the mounts due to their weight. They were contemplating potting them. What would I do? Which medium am I now using with my phalaenopsis? Well, I would actually pot everything simply because I don't have a convenient and easy way for me to water mounted orchids. I had mounted orchids for several years, maybe a couple of years or so. You'll find the link down below to my final thoughts on keeping mounted orchids in a home. At some point, if I ever have an automated grow space, greenhouse, whatever, obviously I might go into that again. Right now though, it is a hassle for me to keep mounted orchids. So if it's a hassle for you as well, maybe you could go the potted route. As far as the medium, well, I'm using all sorts of mediums because I'm doing some sort of comparisons. I want to see if there is a difference between phalaenopsis grown in leca, full leca, and phalaenopsis grown in something like bark and moss. I want to see the disadvantages and advantages and things of the sorts. So I'm using all sorts of media for phalaenopsis. In my experience, they are very forgiving with the type of medium you use. All of the big phalaenopsis that I have, they're all in leca, in self-watering, and they're just so big that I'm not moving them from their setups. With the mini phals, I'm experimenting as well. I do believe they're very forgiving in the medium you can use for them. So just think about you rather than them, to be honest. Think what's easiest for you to not forget to water. Because obviously, if you don't forget to water and the orchid stays hydrated, the orchid will be happy as well. So being that these are epiphytic orchids, remember the golden rules of media: being airy, being moist, and being not toxic. And there you go, you can use whatever you want. Next up, a question that I've tried to answer twice and it ended up being a long discussion, so I'll just stick to the basics. Made Thought asks, what am I gonna do if the orchid loses all of its roots? How will I promote new roots? What is the magic behind things besides giving humidity and regular watering, or there's no magic? Bottom line, there's no magic. Everything is basic biology. I'll try to summarize the 20 minutes of discussion that I made. So this is a Nelly Eiler. It's a rather newish orchid. Hey, there we go. Finally I can grow Nelly Eilers. Look at that, it's a miracle. This is a Multoniapsis. What's happening here? Oh, we got roots. We also have flower spikes. What happened? What is the miracle? There is no miracle. I finally figured out how to provide enough moisture for these roots not to stop growing, enough air for them not to become waterlogged, and what medium did not damage the roots. And that's it. That's all there is to it. I, for one, do not believe in miracle substances. This year, I will make it a point to try out all sorts of stuff. I already started the silicone, and I will see what improvements they can bring. They might be able to bring some improvements, but I am a strong believer in the notion that if you want your orchid to do basic stuff, such as living, you need to offer the basic things: water, air, nutrients, light, and some good temperature. And that's it. The tricky part is to balance all of these things, because you cannot say, oh, this orchid needs exactly this much water and this much air. No, you cannot really say that. It really depends on each environment. Some people get away with Nelly Eilers like it's nothing, and I'm very envious of you. Me, not so much. It's too hot of a climate. But does it mean that I cannot grow them? No, certainly not. And all I did was just apply the basic biology that we've all learned in 4th or 5th grade, depending when everybody learns the basic biology in school, and that is it. Sometimes I feel that because some stuff are really obvious or really simple, we tend to disregard things. We tend to go for the sensational. We tend to go for people who say, oh, I can guarantee this will happen, or you need to prepare this very elaborated recipe to make sure your orchid will grow and will flower. And you need to soak the entire orchid in tea and lavender. I'm sorry, I don't know. There are some recipes out there, I've seen them. And no, it's not necessary, in my opinion anyway. I really don't do any of that stuff. And that's not why some of my orchids died. No, it's because of my inability to understand the basics that I needed to provide. Because it kind of depends for every orchid. So No, I don't believe in magic. There is no magical potion. There is no magical YouTuber which has the answer for everything. What is indisputably the thing that every orchid and every plant needs, it's the basics that biology tells us they need. They need air, they need water, they need nutrients, they need light. Biology doesn't really say they need super thrive, right? Those are conditioners. Those are a different story, which, as I was saying, we shall test out. But they don't make the difference between a healthy orchid or a growing orchid or even a blooming orchid. No, no, no. These are basic stuff that we need to focus on. But anyway, that's a whole different discussion, and I don't want to make another 20-minute discussion out of it. You know, just remember, every company needs to make $1 because it has employees, it has founders, people need to make some money. Also, everybody here on YouTube needs to make some views, needs to gather some subscribers. No matter how people say, oh, I just do this for fun, it's nice when you have subscribers. And I am not going to deny that. Everybody is happy when they have views and they have subscribers. And whoever says they don't care, they're lying. So that's it. Let's get on to the other question before I say anything stupid. Esther has a dilemma: plastic versus clay pots. Clay has obvious disadvantages when repotting and damaging orchid roots. On the other hand, plastic pots are single-use plastics. They cannot be recycled, and even if they can, they're still plastic. So what should you do? Well, of course, the decision will need to belong to you. However, I do have a few corrections. Plastic pots are not single-use. You can actually maintain a good quality plastic pot for years and years and years and years, especially if they are treated against UV rays. They will not become brittle anytime soon. I also have some pots for about 6 years already, and they're still going strong, and I don't intend to change them anytime soon because they're still very flexible, they're not crumbly. I can absolutely reuse them. Some of them are lower quality and they break, yes, but plastic is recyclable. The way you recycle will have to depend on your territory, and in this matter you will have to do your homework. Here in my country we have these bags in the supermarkets, and you can see on these bags everything that you can recycle. Plastic bottles, flasks, whatever, clean plastics, metal packaging, drink cartons, and so on and so forth. Here in my area, once a week, there is a truck that picks up everything that can be recycled in these bags, and people just gather all of these materials rather than throwing them away. So it is recyclable indeed. You just have to know how things are done in your particular territory. This can vary. So now that you have all of the information, you can make a more informed decision, but what you should do, I cannot decide. It's about you and what you believe in and what you think you should do. Alrighty guys, so that's about it for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. You know the drill. Like or dislike this video below. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, tutorials, Q&As, and other fun orchid subjects. And if you really enjoy my channel and you want to support it and help it grow, do consider visiting the merch store down below. I promise I don't sell any magical potion for orchids. All you'll find there is a t-shirt, a mug, all of those basic stuff YouTubers sell. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!